You are listening to the Cookbook Love Podcast with Maggie Green, episode number 264.
Welcome to the Cookbook Love Podcast, a podcast that celebrates cookbook readers, buyers, collectors, writers, and clubs. And now your host, cookbook author, culinary dietitian, and cookbook writing coach, Maggie Green.
Hi, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Cookbook Love Podcast. How's everybody doing today? Happy end of September. Welcome, everybody. Thanks again for listening. And as always, I'm excited to be here. And today I have an interview with Colleen Worthington. But before we get started, I want to let you know about a free training I have for anyone who wants to write a cookbook, but you aren't sure about where to start, how to spend your time, or just what publishers are looking for. In this free training session, you will learn 3 common mistakes that cookbook writers make, the 4 steps to make your work appealing and attractive to publishers, and the best path to choose if you do not want to spend your time or your money on editing, layout, photography, design, or printing your book. You can access this training by visiting www.cookbookwritersacademy.com/free. The link is also below in the show notes. And within just 45 minutes, you will learn how to use your time wisely, create a cookbook platform, develop your concept, and write a proposal that publishers are going to love. So today on the podcast, again, I'm thrilled to have an interview with Colleen Worthington. Colleen is the author of the soon-to-be-released cookbook called Kneaders Bakery and Cafe, a celebration of our best recipes and memories that is due out for release next week on October the 3rd. After more than 25 years of building a baking empire out of her kitchen, Colleen and her husband Gary pursued their interest in scratch-made artisan breads. They trained at the American Institute of Baking, the San Francisco Baking Institute, and worked with Lehi Roller Mills to develop an exclusive flour mixture. When they located a traditional Italian hearth-stone oven, they opened their first bakery in 1997, and it only was a few months before they expanded their bakery items to also include sandwiches, soups, fresh pastries, and now they have over 50 locations, mostly in the West, in Arizona, Colorado, Idaho, Nevada, Texas, and Utah. Perhaps some of the podcast listeners are familiar with the bakery and cafe Kneaders, and I did try to encourage Colleen to bring a cafe to Kentucky. Today on the podcast, we talk not only about owning and running a bakery and cafe, but her philosophy on sharing their very best recipes in a cookbook, their method for specialty items such as their slow-roasted hand-pulled turkey, an array of seasonal menu items, fresh pastries, comfort food, and, of course, we talk about her contribution and dedication to writing this cookbook. So without further delay, let's dive into this interview with Colleen Worthington. Hi, Colleen. Welcome to the Cookbook Love Podcast.
Thank you so much. I'm delighted to be here today.
I'm so excited to have you. Can't wait to talk about your new book and all about your bakery and cafe. But before we get started, I'd like to have everybody tell the audience who you are, a little bit about yourself and what you do.
Well, I'm Colleen Worthington. My husband and I are the founders of Kneaders Bakery Cafe. Currently, we have 50 stores in 6 states, mostly along the Rocky Mountain, but we're expanding. And this next year, we're hoping to open 2 more. I love what I do. Owning a bakery is so pleasurable to me. You get to bring delight to people every single solitary day. And I love the work. I'm 76 years old, and there's no place I'd rather be except the bakery. So yeah. I'm happy to be with you here today.
Well, I'm excited to have you, and I think you've got a great story to tell, and I can't wait to talk about the book too. But you all didn't do this when you start. You didn't start when you were 20. You and Gary started this bakery and cafe after. Tell everybody a little bit about how you got started.
Okay. Well, we retired from retirement. We were with Subway Sandwiches. and decided we owned several stores, decided that that just wasn't what we wanted to do. If we were going to spend all that time and energy, we thought we ought to be doing it for ourselves. And so we had signed some agreements that didn't allow us to start any other concept for 8-10 years. But we thought maybe we'd just retire. But you can only go fishing so many times. You can only go to quilt shops so many times. You can only, there just isn't the same punch in your life when you're not interacting with people. And I love people. It doesn't matter whether it's the guests in the store, the employees in the store, the food purveyors even. It's just a delight to be able to help other people.
Yeah. And so you retired from retirement and
Yep.
opened Kneaders Bakery and Cafe. Where was your first store?
In a little town, Orem, Utah. It's about 30-40 miles south of Salt Lake City. And we had owned the property for several years. We were renting it to someone else. We tore down the building and started building. We were thinking small. We thought we'd just be this little bakery, and we had 4 tables and 16 chairs. And we just thought people would come in and buy our wonderful hearth breads, and that we'd sell them a drink or a cinnamon roll, and it'd just be pretty casual and not many. And then we remodeled, and then we remodeled again, and then we remodeled again. And finally I said to Gary, there is no place to remodel in this store. We're going to have to build a bigger store. And so our 16 stores, our 16 chairs that turned into 42 before we left that place, turned into 128
Wow.
in our new building. And they're not all full every day, but there are so many times when you walk in and there's just no place to sit. So it was a good move on our part. Then we started franchising as well. So after we franchised for a while, we thought we're going to buy all the stores back. Heck, we can't make these people be as enthusiastic and be as careful with the product and love this as much as we do. And so now we're a wholly owned company.
Yeah. And you have 50 stores in 6 states. You told me they're in Utah, Arizona, Colorado, Idaho, Nevada, Texas, and growing.
Yeah.
Any new states on the horizon? Are you coming to Kentucky?
I don't think so. This is our biggest problem. A lot of our ingredients we import from Europe.
Yeah.
And it's very difficult to get those out to the people that are far away from us. So we have to have about 4 or 5 stores in a particular location in order to get supply chain to those people. And so I think that we'll be going to more stores in Texas, more stores in Utah, more stores in Idaho, more stores in Nevada before we come further east.
I'll just have to take a trip out west so I can come to one of your stores. After reading the book, it made me totally want to come, talking to you too, meet you and Gary and come to the bakery. I think it would be wonderful.
Yeah, we'd love to have you come.
Yes. So something that often comes up when I talk to people who own grocery stores, catering businesses, bakeries, and we talk about cookbooks, there's this fear of sharing recipes with everybody because the recipes are, really and truly, I don't know if you agree with this or not, they're the lifeblood of what you all do. The fact that you have these recipes available to the people who work at your stores, that you can turn out consistent products day after day, and from store to store to store, have them be consistent. Yeah. And then people are like, well, I can't share my recipes because if I do, what if nobody comes back to my store? What if it ruins my business? But for some reason, you have decided to not only share your recipes, but publish this beautiful cookbook with pictures and stories all about the bakery and cafe. And I would love to know your thought process behind that.
Well, I think that the exact opposite is what is true. And I'll tell you, when I very first realized that, we were invited to be on a lifestyle show in Salt Lake City, and they asked us to share a particular recipe, which was raspberry bread pudding, which is also in the cookbook. We were happy to share it. We went up and I thought to myself, those exact thoughts that you just talked about. What if nobody comes and gets it? What if this? What if that? And we were flooded with people that next week, all of them after raspberry bread pudding. And I thought to myself, what would cause that? And although a lot of us love to cook, sometimes our lives are so busy, we don't get a chance to cook. And sometimes we're just tired. And so we don't cook. But that made people love us more. We did that every month for 4 or 5 years in the very beginning, where we shared a recipe from the store. And, I think there were plenty of people who made it, but there were even more people that became interested in it and wanted with all their heart just to come to Kneaders and sit in that great environment and have somebody else cook it for them, bake it for them, and to listen to the music and to see the other employees and mingle with other customers. So that's what we found to be true.
Yeah, so it really helped to increase your business. And as someone who cooks all the time, and I do some baking as well, when it's my birthday, I don't make my own cake. Now, my husband Warren, he's made a cake for me every now and then, but a lot of times he'll say to me, "There's this bakery in town. Why don't we pick out a cake and I'll go get it?" And it is really a treat, even if you're a cook or a baker, to have someone else cook or bake for you.
Yep.
And
you're surely right about that.
Yeah. So, and I'm sure you and Gary probably experienced that too after a hard day's work. I'm sure there's times where it's like, I'm not going to cook. Let's find something that someone else has prepared and enjoy that, because and I think there's also this whole mindset sometimes of ideas being scarce and recipes having to be like latched onto. But, when it comes to food, there's tons of different ways to do it. And I just love your way of being generous with the recipes. So tell me about the book, when you decided you wanted to do this, how you went about scaling the recipes to home size quantities, and the whole act of like getting this book in publication.
Okay, well, when we decided to do it, my kids were the people who came and said, "Hey, Mom, for the 20th anniversary at Kneaders, we want to do a cookbook." And so about 2 years before our 20th anniversary, and we're at our 25th anniversary now, my kids and I worked so hard on the cookbook. Oh my goodness. It was all consuming. And the one thing that you mentioned, scaling the recipes back down, is just a nightmare, because you think it's going to be easy, but to make 30 pounds of flour into 2 cups is much more difficult than you think. And sometimes, even though you've been extremely careful, it doesn't always happen like it should. And so we would scale down the recipe. My son-in-law, who's an engineer, would check it all to make sure we'd done it right. And then we'd send it out to people in the family. And we'd say, have your daughters make this recipe, because we want this cookbook to be something that every kind of cook could enjoy. And there are lots of recipes in there that they're just base recipes, but you can make them a jillion different ways, and they taste amazing and are just so good. So we wanted just a regular person to be able to do it.
Yeah.
And so then they'd make them, and maybe they didn't turn out so well. So then grandma is making it, or one of the daughters is making it, and see if we can figure out kind of what happened in that conversion process. So that took a long, long time. Well, we're a family business. All of our kids are involved in the family in some way. And my daughter, who was in charge of the cookbook, they had a family emergency. One of their children was extremely ill, and she had to just say, "Mom, I got to back out right now. I've got other things I need to attend to this child." And we totally understood. We totally got it. That's what we wanted her to do. And so we just put the cookbook away for a while. And then Deseret Book, Shadow Mountain Publishing, came to us about 1.5 years ago and said, "We understand you have a cookbook, and we sure would like to publish that." And so we gave them everything that we'd done. We'd taken lots of pictures. Not all the recipes were in there that we had wanted to be in there, but we gave it to them, and they said, "Oh, this is wonderful. Please let us publish the cookbook." And so we were delighted that we got some people to help us, because at that point it became much, much easier than us trying to decide everything by ourselves and trying to make it work.
Yeah.
They gave us the professional touch that made it so it happened.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's what traditional publishers do. And I think you're a perfect example. And I have a program where I help people learn the process of writing and getting a cookbook published.
Yes.
And I tell them that publishers are looking for cookbook writers and they're looking for material for their next books, probably for 2024 and 2025, but they're looking for us. And we need to, be ready when they come and knock on our door. And I think a lot of times people have a hard time believing that, but you're a good example of that. And you weren't fully ready with everything finished, but the publisher was able to take what you had and they help you design it, edit it, pull all the photography together, get a professional looking book.
Right.
It is a beautiful book. Are you selling it also in your stores?
We're selling it in all 50 of those stores. October the 3rd.
Yeah. So. Great. So that'll be soon. And if anybody's listening, you can go to this bakery and get one. Or I'm sure it'll be available where all cookbooks are sold, and it's very exciting that it's going to be out there. So I thought we would talk a few minutes about some of the recipes that are in the book. What's the total count of recipes? I didn't do a count.
I don't know, 150, but I 39 or something, but I gave a lot of little side recipes. So when you go to the muffin tops, it says use this as a base recipe. And then there's this recipe and this recipe and this recipe. Did the same with scones, with the brownies. So I don't know, whoever counted for me might not have counted all those little recipes that are also in there.
And I think also it's not just baked goods there, because it's a cafe. Also, there are savory dishes as well.
Right.
Soups, salads, and sandwiches. It looks like that. Yeah. And I know one of the things that you all are known for is your slow roasted hand pulled turkey. And I'd love to talk a little bit about that, your philosophy behind offering turkey like that in your stores, and maybe some tips for people making that at home.
Well, we roast the turkey for 12 hours every single solitary night. We thought, why is Thanksgiving turkey so good, but it's only good for 3 or 4 days afterwards, and then we don't want another turkey sandwich again, right? And so we thought it's because it's cooked fresh on Thanksgiving Day. And then the thing that we think turns people off about turkey is that often it's very dry. And so we have a system where steam is injected into the turkey, and then the turkey becomes very moist. But if you just go get one of those big roasting pots that a turkey would fit in, turn it on 350 degrees, put some water in the bottom of it, and let it roast 12 hours, you will just be so impressed with how wonderful that turkey is. Yeah. And it's good for you. We want things that are good for people at the bakery. Our breads are only flour, water, salt. They don't have sugars in them or honey in them. And so we wanted to give people something that they could eat that would be healthy and kind of different than everybody else was doing.
Yeah. And you do that then during the nighttime hours, and it's pulled in the morning and then served at the cafe that day.
Yep.
Yeah. Amazing.
That's exactly how it works.
Yeah. I don't know if anybody's ever thought to roast their turkey overnight before Thanksgiving. Of course, that's not going to, I guess you'd have to, once it's finished, pull it and keep the meat so that it's ready to serve that afternoon or evening. But it is kind of an interesting concept.
We have so many people that ask us, will we roast their turkey for them? We can roast about 14 turkeys in the bakery at the same time, but that's it.
Yeah.
But it's pretty easy to do at home. It's not that hard, but it just that slow temperature and the steam, it just makes it wonderful.
Yeah, that's great. So I know the seasons and the seasonality in the Western states provides a lot of inspiration for the types of things you offer on your menu. Give us some examples of what that might mean.
Well, so in the springtime, we're looking at things that are more lemon and lime because, of course, here in Utah, we aren't growing vegetables or fruits that time of year. And so that's spring to us. We're lemon and lime, we're poppy seed, those kinds of things. In the summertime, it's all about the berries because we can get wonderful berries from California and Yuma, Arizona. And so we concentrate on those things that are fresh. And then In the fall, right now, it's pumpkin everything: pie, cookies, cheesecake, bread, anything you can think of pumpkin. We're doing it right now at the bakery. And then I don't know, you kind of think winter in there, but it's not winter for us. It's always Christmas. And so at Christmas time, we're doing crushed peppermint with chocolate. We're doing really heavier soups that would be more creamy soups. And of course, in the springtime and the summertime, we're doing light broth kind of soups in the bakery. But we love Christmas: gingerbread, chocolate, but chocolate's good any time of year, any place, I think. So we have a lot of chocolate items. The eclair recipe that's in the book is one of the things that we do all year long at the bakery. And we have such a good time with that. But occasionally we'll change it up and do a seasonal eclair along with the chocolate eclair.
Yeah. And that goes along with the fresh pastries that you all are known for making every day. What kind of pastries?
Well, we do fresh fruit tarts, little tart shell, vanilla mousse imported from Switzerland. And then we have strawberries, blueberries, orange, mandarin orange is on it. And then we do eclairs every day. We do a chocolate dome that is crazy good. It is devil's food cake. Then it has chocolate mousse on it. Then it's all has chocolate ganache poured all over it. And then you take chocolate curls and put it on the sides of it. It is so good. And we sell so many of them. And then we do banana pudding. We're going to do raspberry cheesecake. We're going to do raspberry pie, cream cheese pie. We're having caramel cheesecake. I mean, all of the seasons require something different from us. You would not be very happy for Easter having pumpkin bread.
Right. You got to have something Eastery when it's the springtime. That's for sure. And lemon sounds great. I know you said you do a lot of lemon or citrus, poppy seed, things like that. Berries, of course, maybe some berries starting to come into season, but I think that's good. Is there a season that is particularly busy at the bakery?
Oh my goodness. It is this time of year. From right now with Halloween, Thanksgiving, and Christmas. It's just out of control busy for us. We had a day yesterday where in all the stores, to start out the pumpkin bread sales, we did a buy one, get one free pumpkin bread. And we sold of the pumpkin bread in the store I'm closest to, 2,000.
Wow.
So I haven't looked at the numbers to see what it was chain wide, but it was crazy. And then when we get to Christmas, it's a busy time the whole month of December. Thanksgiving, the Wednesday before Thanksgiving, is our single busiest day of the year. We make a lot of pies and we do soft rolls that are so good.
Yeah.
And so this time of year, people want warm soup. You think of bakery this time of year.
Yeah, that's right. And something that's in your book that we have to talk about, me being from Kentucky, is your cornbread. Now, you call it Utah mountain style cornbread and honey butter. And of course, I always like to say that, or think that I live in the middle of cornbread territory here in Kentucky. Probably even in the North, people make cornbread, but the Southerners are known for their cornbread. And it's said that you all started to deliver orders of bread to the Sundance Ski Resort, and then they would serve the cornbread at the top of the lift to help warm up the skiers. I think that's amazing. And in the book, it looks like it's baked in a pan and then cut into squares, correct?
That's right. Uh-huh.
Yeah. And I think the big question that people often ask about cornbread is what kind of cornmeal you use. Is that something that you're able to get sourced from anybody in your area, or order it from a local corn grower or grinder?
We've just always used the corn mill that we use in the bakery.
Yeah.
So when you're baking with the hearth oven, you spread on the hearth-stones cornmeal so that the bread doesn't stick to it. And so we did that with Sundance. They loved it like that. We've just kept doing it that way.
Yeah, I think that's amazing. And this is a perfect segue into talking about your stone hearth oven. Tell us a little bit about what that oven is and what it can do.
Well, it's interesting. That's the one thing we spend a lot of time researching and going to schools about. Gary comes from a home where bread was baked 3 times a week. just white bread and wheat bread, and we loved bread. So we started eating bread that was European style, and decided that's what we wanted to sell. And so Gary investigated all of the ovens possible and found in Verona, Italy, the ovens that we have, which are Poland ovens. They're amazing. The bread bakes at 500 degrees that goes into it. And so it makes that wonderful crisp shell on the outside of it, and it develops the flavor without having to add any honey or any butter or anything like that. It's interesting. I used to go around to schools and let them taste it, like in junior high in their home ec class. And I would blindfold them and I'd give them a piece of like Wonder Bread, something like that, and then a piece of the Kneaders baguette. And I'd say, which one do you think has the most sugar in it, this most sweetener? And they'd always say the baguette. And then they'd ask, then I'd ask, which one has the very most butter in it? And they'd say, oh, the baguettes, but they were blindfolded. So they didn't know the trick that I was playing on them. But from growing that start, having it a cool rise, sometimes our bread takes 24 hours to rise before we bake it off. This is not quick bread. This is a long procedure to make it. And all of our bread is at least 12 hours because we're growing a natural start. And from that natural start, it's just flour, water, but it picks up the yeast in the air. And so San Francisco sourdough doesn't taste like Kneaders sourdough in Utah. And in Utah, it doesn't taste like our sourdough in Arizona. It's very specific to the yeast that is growing in the air.
Yeah, so that's an interesting way that your breads vary from state to state, even though you're using the same recipe.
Yeah, but it's still very delicious in all those places.
I'm sure
I've tried it in every store, and it's still pretty good. But in the recipe book, since people don't have that hearth-stone oven, don't have this home start, we decided that the best thing for us to do was make it so it would taste good to them. And so we have added honey in some of the recipes, and we've also added butter in some of the recipes to still give it that flavor.
Yeah.
But that is not the way that we're making it in the bakery. But we handcrafted it because we wanted so badly to have everybody be successful at making this bread.
And what are your recommendations for someone at home then in the cookbook to get a nice hot environment in an oven to get that crisp crust and crackly crust?
Awesome. First of all, I'm going to tell you what you don't do. The bread in the hearth-stone oven is steam injected. And so it raises really quickly. And so the brilliant me thought after attending schools, is all I'm going to do is I'm going to fill it with mist. I'm going to take my little mister that I use to iron my clothes, and then I'm going to put it in the oven. And I killed my oven the day before Thanksgiving because oven on the coils doesn't work.
Yeah.
And so we found that the very best thing to do is you can take a pan and fill it, put it in the oven, leave it till it's really hot, and then pour water in it, and it will give you wonderful, wonderful steam in your oven. And a really great crust. Another thing a person can do is put it in a big pot, heavy cast iron pot, and cook it in that. And you'll get the same kind of feel in that oven. It'll have that nice crispy crust and much more flavor.
Yeah. And still the high temperature then.
I'm in my regular oven at home. I'm not doing 500 degrees.
Yeah.
Maybe 450. But I think in those recipes, Justin, our baker, put down, he is the one who developed those recipes, and he told the exact temperatures on all of them.
Oh, good.
To bake them at. He's got that little hint in there about the hot pan. And at home, he bakes really successful hearth breads at his home. And he's using the method that he shared in the book to do that.
Great. That's a good tip. And you all order a special flour, or have had a special flour developed for your hearth bread?
Right. Right in the very beginning, we have a very good friend that owns Lehi Mills. And in the very beginning, he and my husband were thinking about opening the bakery together, but he decided that he better stick to being a miller and we better stick to being sandwich makers and bread makers. And so Sherm was really great, realizing that the flour he had wouldn't make the bread that we wanted. In fact, his wife even came to some of the classes we attended in Kansas at the National Institute of Baking, and and said, we've got to do something different. So Sherm and my husband worked on a flour that would be just perfect, that would give the characteristics that you would want in a hearth bread. And Sherm could do that because he was a boutique. He is a boutique miller. And that means that they can take small customers and do exactly what they want. At the time he was doing the biscuit recipe for Harmon's and Kentucky Fried Chicken. And so he was used to working with companies and getting with them exactly what it was they needed and exactly what they wanted. So, and then my husband took it down to San Francisco Baking Institute. They are run by Frenchmen, and had them test the flour. And they said, oh my goodness, this is as amazing as European flour. In fact, it might even be a little better. So we were pleased with that.
Yeah, that's good. And you all bake your bread every day then. Do you ever have leftovers?
Yeah, we sure do. And it's one of the happiest times for me to have some leftovers, because all of our stores have been given permission to donate those leftovers to charities. So we do everything from homeless people to battered women to children, even at Head Start who are having a struggle because they're not being fed. We do churches that are feeding the homeless people or feeding people. It does my heart good to get to share that. We have one of the stories in there is of Gladys Begay, and that's the first person who we donated bread to. She came into the store and said, hey, can I get your day-old bread? And we said, oh, sure, you can have the day-old bread. And she said, I want to take it down to the people in the Four Corners of Utah. They are so hungry. And the people that are living on the Dye Reservation down there are just never have enough food. And so she would come and get it, take it home and freeze it. And then she would take it on the weekend down to her people that were down there. And it was just such a blessing for all of us to have that opportunity to feed those people in our state.
Yeah, amazing. So that's one thing that I did enjoy about the book too, is the stories that you interspersed about members of the family that are involved, different people in the community that have been involved in the bakery and the cafe. And I think it's a nice way to bring a personal touch to the book, and something that I know people who read cookbooks always enjoy reading as well.
Thank you.
Yeah. So I think that your cafe and bakery is known for its comfort food. Is that correct?
Yeah, I think if you ask the customers they say that's why we come. And I think it's not just the food. I think it's the atmosphere as well. But yeah.
Tell me what you mean by that.
Well, comfort food is food that you want to come back for more, right? And so our soups are definitely something that people just love and come back and back and back for. I want to just tell you a little short story. I was there at the bakery one day, and a lady came in, and she didn't look good at all. And there was a big, huge, long line. And when we have a line at that bakery, it's like 25 feet long line. And I thought, she's not going to make it up here to the front counter. I walked back to her and I said, are you doing okay today? And she said, well, I just finished my last chemotherapy and I did not want to go. I said to myself, if I go and have the chemo, I'm going to treat myself to chicken noodle soup at Kneaders. And so I went and got her the chicken noodle soup and gave it to her and put a little cookie for when she was feeling better in her sack. And then just went on about my business. And she, of course, left. But a few minutes later, one of my employees came and they brought me one of our napkins back. And on the napkin, it said, thank you so much for making my day. And that's when I thought, we really have comfort food. People, we can be down there at midnight and somebody will knock on the window and say, we're on our way to the hospital. And as all my wife wants is some cream of broccoli soup. So people tell us that what we sell is comfort food. It makes them feel warm and good inside and like they're home and people love them.
Yeah. And I think you make an excellent point in the beginning of the interview that bakeries and cafes fill a place in the restaurant business that people need, and particularly when it is comfort food. And it's not that people don't necessarily enjoy cooking at home, but that, like the lady that had the chemo, it was something that meant a lot to her to be able to have that and to Mark and finish her chemotherapy that day, and you were there to provide that for her. Not only the restaurant being there, but that you were able to pay attention and aware that she was in line and help her to get her soup so she could get home faster than having to go through the line. So I think those are the kinds of special touches that make a business like yours special. And I think anyone that buys the book will see that that comes through very clearly.
Thank you.
Yeah. So you say we communicated a little bit back and forth before the interview here that you think this is a book of Thanksgiving. And tell us what you mean about that, by that.
Well, when I think of Thanksgiving, I think of just tons and tons of food. I grew up in a family that Thanksgiving dinner was 200 people. We had to have it in my aunt's preschool in order to have a big enough room for everybody to be there. And there were just always just lines and lines and lines of food. And in the cookbook, you'll find a huge array of different kinds of food. Not that you just eat at Thanksgiving time, but you could eat any time of year. And then the other thing we wanted to do was to give thanks to all of the people who have helped us. You're not the only person that makes something good. And we've had so much help from people. I mean, days when I'm tired, my kids are there saying, "Mom, it's okay. We got this." And we've had people who have helped us with our business, like Sam Dellis. He is in charge of our supply chain. And the thing that Sam did, he was hired, and a week later we were in Hawaii on a family vacation. And that was when the swine flu got all of the turkeys and chickens. And he called us and said, "We're going to not have any turkey." Well, that's how we make our business. I mean, we sell more turkey sandwiches probably than anybody in the rest of the world put together. And so Sam said, "I'll call every morning at 4:00 your time, and I'll tell you how I'm coming." And that whole week we were gone, people thought about going back in the family. We need to go back and help with this. But every morning Sam would call at 4:00 and say, "Hey, we're good for today." One day we were within 5 hours of not having turkey, but Sam never, ever let us down. And those are the kind of people that I wanted to share their stories with, because they're the people who've made Kneaders. It hasn't been Gary and I. Yeah. It's been the other people around us.
Yeah, that's amazing. And you make me want to come out west and come to one of the stores. And like I said, I hope that some of the people who are listening that live in that area have already been and get to enjoy all the wonderful things that you're talking about. So thank you so much for the book and for the coming on the show. But before we wrap up, I always have a question for my people I interview about another cookbook, a favorite cookbook, a cookbook that's meant a lot to you. So I'd like to know what your favorite cookbook is.
Well, I am a cookbook collector too, but not at your scale quite. I've got a lot of cookbooks, though. My very favorite one is called Household Searchlight Recipe Book. And it was published first in 1937. And this was the cookbook that my mother cooked from. She's worn it through. The back of it's falling off. All of the pages you can hardly read. You can see the ones she made the most, for sure. Some of the pages are even falling out. But my mother died when I was 26 years old. And I was so lucky, I thought, to get this cookbook. And it is, food always reminds us of people and things. And this cookbook is my mom.
It looks like it has a lot of tabs in it.
It does. They're wonderful. Why don't they do cookbooks like that anymore?
Well, I don't know.
So you can get to it fast.
Yes, I know. I mean, and a lot of people like that style of cookbook with the tabs and the notebook type of binder. So I don't know why they do it. We'll have to ask the next time we write our next cookbook if our publisher can do that for us and see what they say.
I know the answer is no.
You learned that, huh? The answer. I worked with The Joy of Cooking on one of their revisions back in 2006. And the question was always, can we have more than one ribbon? Because, originally when The Joy was published, they had 2 ribbons.
That's right.
Yep. But they said, no, we only could have one ribbon. And I guess it was the cost, if you multiply that by millions of books and whatever and I think that's an interesting point, though. You probably know this from the restaurant industry. Something that might only cost pennies at the level of one book makes a difference when you scale it up.
Oh, so true.
And if someone in your business decided they're going to give everybody an extra ounce of turkey for all the turkey sandwiches you sell all week, that would make a difference in the bottom line and the food costs for your business.
Yes. Yes, It sure would.
Yeah. So anyway, I just think that, so I tried to appreciate that, that the ribbon might cost X amount of whatever, but it's a financial thing for a publisher too, and if they make their business off of selling books, and we provide the content and give them all the recipes and things. But I think traditional publishers do beautiful jobs with, most cookbooks. And I think that the publisher that you used did a great job with this book. And I love that they reached out to you to ask about it. And it's a great book. And it's coming out October the 3rd. And everyone can look for it where they buy cookbooks, or you can go to a cafe and buy one for yourself.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. And I wish you all nothing but the best. Enjoy your time with this book. And thank you so much for sharing the story of your bakery and cafe. And I hope you have a happy fall and good Christmas season, and that it's a nice bustling season for the bakery as well.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thanks for coming on the show. Thank you so much for joining us today for this episode of the Cookbook Love podcast. Again, all the links can be found in the show notes at www.cookbooklove.co. And if you are interested in writing a cookbook of your own, please check out the free cookbook writing masterclass called How to Get Paid to Write a Cookbook. It is designed specifically for food or nutrition experts, and you can check that out at www.cookbookwritersacademy.com/free. So that's it for today's episode of the Cookbook Love podcast. This is your host, Maggie Green. And until next time, have a great day and keep loving your cookbooks.
Thanks for listening to the Cookbook Love podcast. You can find out more information at www.cookbooklove.co.